Hi everyone, welcome. I just want to say a special welcome to all our visitors and for the persons who are joining us on this platform for the first time. And for our regular members who are continuously supporting us, we want to say thank you and that we appreciate you. Please bow your heads with me as I do the opening prayer. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly and most compassionate Father God, thank you for sparing our lives to see a new day. Thank you for food, shelter, and clothing. It is nothing good that we have done, but for your grace and mercy, that is why we are here today. Lord, in your word, it says you resist the proud, but you give grace to the humble. Please help us to be humble. Please help that when we leave here, we'll never be the same. Thank you for listening, and thank you for answering. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. At this time, we will have song service by Sister Martina Campbell.
Welcome to our song service. Our first song is I Feel Like Running. I feel like running, skipping, praise Lord for what He has done for me. He has set my spirit free. I feel like running, skipping, praise Lord for what He has done for me. Press along, saints, press along in God's own way. Press along, saints, press along in God's own way. Persecution we must bear, the trials and crosses in our way. All the answer, the battle, the seat of the victory. It soon be down. All troubles and trials when I get home on the other side. I'm gonna shake my hands with the elders. I'm gonna tell all the people good morning. I'm gonna sit down beside my Jesus. I'm gonna sit down and rest a little while. In Jesus' name, so sweet. Emmanuel's name, so sweet. In Jesus' name, so sweet. Emmanuel's name, so sweet. And then me rock upon Jesus. Jesus' name, so sweet. And then me rock upon Jesus. Jesus' name, so sweet. Sit down and tell me if you love my Jesus. Sit down and tell me if you love my Lord. I want to know if you love my Jesus. I want to know if you love my Lord. Thanks for participating in our song service.
The AY emblems, the aim, the Advent message to all the world in my generation. Motto, the love of Christ compels me. Pledge, loving the Lord Jesus, I promise to take an active part in the youth ministry of the church, doing what I can to help others and to finish the work of the gospel in all the world. Law, the Pathfinder's law is for me to keep the morning watch, do my honest part, care for my body, keep a level eye, be courteous and obedient, walk softly in the sanctuary, keep a song in my heart, and go on God's errand. The song, Oh, we are the Pathfinders. Adventist youths are we from every land and sea. Together we pray and work and play in happy harmony. We have a faith to share with others everywhere. A message of love from God above to show the world we clear. Adventist youths, Adventist youths, Adventist youths. At this time, we'll have the special song by the Charles siblings.
Letting go of every single dream. Lay each one down at your feet. Every moment of your wandering never changes what you see. Try to win this
Thank you for your lovely singing. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this program as we continue to celebrate Child's Month. Today, we launch our first evangelistic series entitled Carry the Light. The theme for today's AY program is Child Safety Online, at Home, and on the Road. Please stay tuned as I know you'll be blessed. At this moment, we'll have the presentation by Sister Erica Heslop. Please stay tuned as I know she has a message for you. Thank you.
Happy Sabbath, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to our Andrews Memorial S.D.A Church AY program in celebration of Child's Month. I am your host, Sister Erica Heslop Martin, and I will be taking you through this program on children's safety on the road, at home, and online. Now, it's extremely important that we put our children's safety as paramount in significance. It is extremely important that we protect our children. Our children are precious. They are the future. Now, to start this program, I will share with you a short poem about the safety and precious commodity that we have in the children. Children are like flowers. Shower them with your love and attention and see how well they bloom in your garden. Their smiles are like the sun that brighten up our world. Don't abuse them or misuse them. Don't you see how precious they are? Be their protector and shield them from the dangers of this world. Shower them with your love every day, and they will beautify your life in every way. Now, for today's program, we have 3 persons online. We have 3 experts. We will take the program in the form of a panel discussion. So we have with us today Mrs. Latoya Hall. We have Mr. Omar Parkinson, and we have Mr. Damian Donaldson. So we're going to have Mrs. Hall first, as she is the Public Education and Special Projects Manager at the Office of the Children's Advocate. She is a Justice of the Peace, former journalist, and educator. She's also a wife and mother. Now we will hear her views on the importance of children's safety on the road, at home, and online. Mrs. Hall.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having the Office of the Children's Advocate as part of your AY program. The pleasure is ours, especially now being Child Month. We are happy when organizations and, of course, well-known religious institutions like yours invites us into your homes to share with your children about safety. It may sound cliche, but safety is everyone's business. And especially when it comes on to children, now more than ever, each person needs to play a very critical role in ensuring that children are safe, children are being protected, and that their well-being comes first. Culturally, that is an issue we have in Jamaica. There are a number of persons who feel that children do not have rights. And because of that, it sometimes makes our job very difficult to be executed. The Office of the Children's Advocate is a commission of the Jamaican Parliament. And what that means is we operate somewhat like an INDICOM, because I know a lot of persons are familiar with INDICOM. So we are an oversight body for every organization and institution that is run by the government and even the ones that are private. So we inspect, we ensure that they are compliant, and we ensure that in state facilities, for example, those operated by the CPFSA, Child Protection and Family Services Agency, we ensure that children's rights are not being breached, and that those who are vested to take care of these children understand their roles and functions and help to keep those children safe. So the Office of the Children's Advocate, through the Children's Advocate, who is Mrs. Diane Gordon Harrison, what we actually do is we advise Parliament about the different things that need to be addressed with regard to children. So if laws need to be updated, for example, the Child Care and Protection Act of 2004, which we use, or which gives us the powers to operate, that law we have suggested needs to be updated now because it does not cover everything that concerns the protection and enforcement of children's rights. We influence policy from a government level, and the Children's Advocate is so empowered that she is able to call a tribunal in place should, in case any government organization does anything that should breach or infringe on a child's rights or that child or those children's best interest. We have several arms in the Office of the Children's Advocate, but we are very small, just 33 members of us. We're located only in one place in Jamaica, and that is in Kingston, unlike the CPFSA, which has offices all over. Now, we have an investigations and compliance unit, which goes into, as I said before, homes and communities, children's safety facilities. They inspect, they ensure that everything is as it ought to be. If children have complaints to make, they take those complaints. Recommendations are made to the Children's Advocate and action is taken. We have a legal and policy unit, which, as it says, it looks at policies. And of course, these are lawyers who represent children, whether they are the perpetrators or victims in a court of law. The law says everybody who is 0 to 17 years old is considered a child. So those are our predominant clients. If you are 18 years old, you legally become an adult in Jamaica, and so we no longer have legal jurisdiction over your child. What we can do in cases that would have some sort of abuse or other situations, we basically give advice. That's what we do. We give advice at that level. Now, with regard to safety, the Office of the Children's Advocate is very, very keen on advising parents that it is their job, first and foremost, to ensure that their children are safe at all times. The law speaks about children being in need of care and protection. And when we get to speak to organizations, institutions, and individuals, we impress upon everybody that your child's safety is your responsibility first and foremost. The state comes in only after the situation has gotten out of hand or after there's a situation where the state needs to intervene. Now, we are operating in very extraordinary times, as you will well appreciate. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a number of things that we used to do routinely to change. And as a result of that, you may find that parents who used to have persons to look after their children are no longer in that position, because probably those persons who look after their children now have to be caring for their own children. And so we have found that there are increased numbers in abuse and other situations that are occurring with children coming to our office in the form of reports. Children are being left at home unmanned because parents sometimes have to go to work and they do not have individuals, as I said before, who are able to care for these children. So sometimes they are to be participating in online classes. They are not participating. Sometimes they have left the home. The parents are not aware that they have left the home. Sometimes they are engaged in all manner of conversations with different individuals online or otherwise. And so this becomes extremely problematic for the parents, and sometimes, unfortunately, results in a situation in which there are challenges within the home and for the parents, and sadly for the child. So one of the things we try to do is we try to encourage parents as best as is possible, put the structures in place or the plans in place for your children to be cared for aptly. Ensure that, of course, if they have to be left at home, they are legally old enough to be left unattended. And of course, that you have some kind of way to monitor what it is that your children are doing. Nowadays, you have all sorts of applications that you can put on tablets as parents and on phones. And these applications can assist in monitoring your children if you have to do so remotely. Now, I see that this is an AY setting, so I will also speak very briefly to the young people. You too have a responsibility to ensure that you are actively engaged in all the activities that you ought to be engaged in at this point in time. Persons can only protect you if you put yourselves in the position to be protected. Do not get yourselves, especially online, engaged in conversations and activities and games and other social media or internet interactive tools that will cause you to be interacting with persons that you're not supposed to be interacting with. We understand that many of the games that children are playing now, and even the social media sites, persons are engaging people that they don't know. They are speaking with individuals that they have not met. And a phenomenon that we call catfishing takes place a lot of times, where people put up a picture that is not their real picture. And what they do is they put it there to woo you and to win your attention, but they're actually somebody completely different. Sometimes it's a man pretending to be a woman trying to get a little boy's attention. Sometimes it's a grown-up trying to get a younger boy or a younger girl's attention. Sometimes it is persons who have been involved in crime and other illegal activities, persons interested in getting children to become a part of their network. And of course, we have to consider human trafficking nowadays, which is so far reaching in its definition that sometimes even getting a child to move from one place in Jamaica to another is considered human trafficking. A lot of children are very gullible. And even adults are very gullible at this point in time. They think social media is such a safe place. And they join all kinds of sites, give out their personal information. And sometimes you will have even identity theft taking place, where people take your pictures, people take your personal information, and they set up additional profiles out there posing and pretending to be you. So parents have to become very vigilant and no, don't take it's a young people and it's their thing and I'm not interested kind of approach. Because sometimes trouble is looming right in your homes and you have no idea because you have this apathetic kind of attitude and view towards, what children are doing and the tools that they're using to do what they're doing. Young people, we're warning you to be very, very careful. Be careful who you engage. Be careful with whom you speak. Exercise all manner of caution as much as is possible and as often as is possible in your online and even in your physical engagement with individuals. When you're leaving your children at home, please make sure that you're leaving them with responsible persons who actually care for them and will take care of them, because many of the cases of abuse that have been reported to us and have come to our attention has taken place by virtue of people who they know very well. So it's not the stranger danger thing that we've been teaching kids all along. Sometimes it's the auntie, it's the uncle, it's the father, it's the mother, it's the niece, it's the brother, it's the stepfather, it's the stepmother. And so you have to be very vigilant. If your child says to you or starts behaving differently, you have to pay attention and find out what is going on with that child, because sometimes there are underlying issues that are not necessarily being addressed, and children are not necessarily going to readily share it with you because they are fearful of the individuals who are doing the particular thing to them. And so, as I said before, it is our encouragement that parents be vigilant and also children take responsibility in taking care of themselves as they navigate the social space online. So if you have any questions at this point in time, you may ask. I'm willing to facilitate those questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So if you just joined us, that was Mrs. Latoya Minot Hall from the Office of the Children's Advocate. So we have some questions for you, Mrs. Hall. The first one is, what tips do you have for parents who have no help at home?
That's a difficult one. That's almost like a trap you're setting for me. As a parent myself, well, I did give some tips when I was speaking earlier. I said, if you have to leave your child at home, ensure that the child is old enough to be able to stay by his or herself. And sometimes age is not the only factor to be considered, because you may have a child that's 16 but very immature. You may have a child that is 9 or 10 and that is very mature and responsible and can be left, and you don't have to worry yourself. But parents have to bear in mind that there are always individuals who are paying attention to what's going on in your home. And sometimes you don't even know that persons are doing that. And so if you don't have someone to care for your child, I honestly, if it is a situation where you absolutely can't find anyone, what I personally do is, because I have fallen into that situation, I have to take my children to work with me. And so what I have done is I try to find activities to give them to do while I am working. I have a child that is 1 year and 6 months old, and I have 2 older ones. And so I have to find activities. I have to keep the smaller one with me and find activities to give the 2 older ones to do if they're not engaged in online class. Some people do not have that liberty, but I guess you just have to try to find somebody trustworthy to pop in by your house to see what's going on with the child, to ensure that the child is engaged. And if the child is not engaged, then of course, try to render the assistance. You, the parent, have to call home consistently. If the child has access to WhatsApp, video call your child, let the child show you what he or she has been working on, and just exercise that level of responsibility that is expected in general parenting. It's not rocket science. There is no manual. We just have to do what we have to do to ensure that our children, are safe. For everybody, it's trial and error. There is no rule. There's no set anything. It's just trial and error. And absolutely, we have to understand that everybody's situation is not the same. And so, as long as the children are okay, then I guess that is what matters after all.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Hall. That was very comprehensive. All right. So we have another question for you. This one is, in the event that children have to be on the road without supervision, for example, being sent to a corner shop to buy food items, how can we equip them with the necessary tools in learning how to conduct themselves when they're on the road?
Well, I think this would fall under general parenting. If your child has to engage with anybody at all, whether it be at the corner shop or otherwise, there are certain things that you must teach your child by they reach a certain age and they are able to understand. You have to teach your children not to engage strangers at all. They can be courteous. Someone may say hello. You keep it moving. Hi, hello, good afternoon. Keep it respectful and keep moving. May I speak with you? I'm not allowed to speak with strangers. And you continue to walk to go where you're going. We don't encourage you to send children who are too small, especially if these shops are far away from home. Don't send them if they're too small, because peradventure somebody is pursuing them. They will not be able to have that level of maturity to take the necessary evasive action to be able to, get rid of this individual that may be following them. Sometimes small children who go to the shop, you may find that they're there.
Mrs. Hall? Okay. All right. It seems as if Mrs. Hall has lost some connection. All right. So we'll continue the program. So guys, you heard from Mrs. Hall from the Office of the Children's Advocate. And in general, she spoke about children's safety. right? And being a parent, it doesn't take for you to have a manual. She said, basically, it's trial and error and you learn it as you go along. And it is our responsibility as a parent to ensure that our children are safe, that they are protected, and that they know what to do in the event of someone trying to attack them or someone trying to kidnap them. All right, so now we move on to our next panelist. We have Mr. Damian Donaldson, right? He has been an information security professional for the past 18 years and has over 25 years of experience in the field of information technology. He has worked within the utilities, financial, and business process services sectors in Jamaica and the Caribbean, implementing and operating information security programs. He has lectured at the University of the West Indies, Mona campus, and is a founding member and a past president of the Information Systems Audit and Control Association, the Kingston chapter here in Jamaica. He's a teacher in our Sabbath school, the primary class at the Andrews Memorial S.D.A Church. He is very creative, can I tell you? He knows how to engage the children and he always gives them safety tips. So let's hear from Mr. Donaldson as he comes to us and gives us some information on children's safety. Mr. Donaldson?
Thank you very much, Erica. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sabbath. And child safety is a topic that is forefront in our minds at this time when it comes to being online, especially in light of the COVID situation and the need for our children to have a lot more access to online facilities just to continue with their education. Why is it such a big concern? When you think about the whole online space, what's really happening is that you are opening up pathways of connection between your children and the entire world, the rest of the world. So there was a time in times past when we thought about protecting children, protecting our families. You figure that the home is a safe space. Once you get inside the confines of your home, those walls, that you're safe, and your main focus is keeping the bad things on the outside and not letting them on the inside. When we got radio and TV, those became avenues to bring a bit of the outside world content into our homes, right? But it flowed one way. So we could receive and consume, but there was nothing that was going out. We get telephones, you have connectivity both ways. And now with the internet, it's progressed even further because it's more than just voice. You're getting video, you're getting data, you're getting information that is traversing both into your home and outside of your home. So the thinking that we used to have about, okay, the bad people are on the outside and keep them out and everything on the inside is safe. We have to throw that out the window now because children have mobile devices, cell phones, tablets that they take with them anywhere or they can take with them anywhere. So they potentially have direct connectivity to the outside world and the outside world to them, wherever it is that they are. Even if they're in the home and physically behind secure walls, you have opened up little avenues, little windows with direct access to your children from the rest of the world. So just based on that and the thinking that we used to have, it's a cause for concern because you now have to apply the same type of scrutiny that you used to in terms of the physical space. You tell your children if they go to the playground or they're out in the schoolyard, they need to be careful of who they associate with. They need to be careful of what they say, what they do, who they talk to, beware of strangers and all of that. That now has to apply for the online space. It was mentioned previously by the previous presenter. Children play games. They play games online. Many parents are not aware that these games have an online component that allows the children to connect and interact with other people. And just as you can imagine, in the real world, not everybody behaves their best. And the people that your children interact with, even in these innocent seeming games, may not really have their best interests at heart or be the best influence on them. You also have to consider that in addition to those kind of threats, you have the technical threats, cybercrime threats, the same good old-fashioned viruses and malware. You have people looking to steal information from your devices or to trick you into giving up information that they can use for criminal purposes. So it's almost like a minefield out there, and it's not to scare you, but to be aware. And how you navigate that, the first thing you need to have is that awareness. So not that you're going to be all terrified and scared, but you need to know what is out there. If you don't know what is out there, you can't protect your children. If you don't know what the risks are, you can't protect your children. If you don't know what the dangers are, you can't figure out the best way to protect them. So as a parent, I think the first thing that you should be looking to do is become aware of what exactly it is that your children have to face out there. When you're giving your children access to these devices, don't just, treat it like a toy that you give them and then walk away. You really have to understand what it is you're giving them, what the capabilities are, and how best to manage it so that when you hand it over to them, you have some level of assurance that they will be in good stead. They will not be exposed to more risk than you deem is appropriate or manageable, right? So it's not that every parent has to become a techie, but you need to understand what it is you're giving your kids. And probably a good rule of thumb is that if you can't really understand it or figure it out too much, then it's probably a sign that you need to, be very cautious in terms of how much access you give your kids for that. Because if you are not aware and able to manage it, then it is akin to, opening up the doors to your home for everybody to come in without you being able to figure out what is going on. So you have to find some way to get yourself aware of what is involved and what's going on. And then from that awareness, you'll be able to now determine what type of response you need to give. You need to be involved. There really is no magic bullet that anybody can give you to say, okay, if you do these things, you're guaranteed to keep your kids safe online. What it really boils down to is, the amount of effort that you as a parent put in, what your focus is, what your priorities are. There are tools out there that can help you, but you need to put in the work and understand and do what is necessary to protect. I think that is where it starts from.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Damian. That was some good information there. And as you know, we are living in the information technology age. We're in the age of technology. And as you can see with this pandemic, the children are online constantly. And sometimes it can be so scary for us as parents because there's so many things happening out there. And we have to ensure that we're able to set up mechanisms to be able to monitor what they are doing on the tablets, on the smartphones, on the laptops, whichever device they are using. We need to ensure that they are doing the right thing and that they're not wandering off with some stranger, right? And as Damian said with the games, many times you have these games and these games are not what they seem to be. They are games that can lure them into things that are bad for them. So Damian, you know that we're going to have you for a program on child safety online in our Sabbath school because we need more of this information. As I said before, this is the age of technology and children are online constantly. So we need to protect them in the online space. So, Damien, I have some questions for you lined up already. Yes, because this is a hot topic online, right? But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the questions that I have for Mrs. Hall, then I get back to you. All right? So, Mrs. Hall, are you there? Mrs. Hall? Okay, all right. So the internet has failed. All right. So Damien, it's over to you. So the questions that I have for you. Okay, so the first one, how can you facilitate parent training regarding online safety with human trafficking and pedophilia as a reality in our society? So let me ask that question again. How can you facilitate training, parent training that is, regarding online safety with human trafficking and pedophilia as a reality in our society?
Okay, so there are resources parents can turn to online. There are a number of organizations, especially those that are children focused, you know, the United Nations, so on and so forth, that have resources set up to help parents understand the whole issue of online safety and the connections to things like human trafficking and so on. So I would say, you know, that's the first thing that you should do. Use Google, child safety online resources, and a bunch of stuff is going to come up. And you can choose from those and get a starting point for that. In addition to that, though, I try to simplify it and break it down as much as possible. The core issue and the core concern when it comes to child safety, I believe, is it's just parenting. It's good old-fashioned parenting. The technology puts a different flavor on it, but at the core of it, it's the same parenting issues that parents have faced from parents became parents for the first time. Supervising your children's activities, shielding them from the undesirable elements for as long as you can. Meanwhile, you build them up with the values, the morals, and the tools that they'll need so that when it is they get exposed to things, they can know what to do and how to respond. That's the strategy that has worked for the ages. That's the strategy that the Bible puts forward to us. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, it will not depart from him. So we have to start early. There's no point at which it is too early to start training up your children, right? From they come out of the womb, you start setting the right example and be consistent with it. And I have found in my personal experience that is what works the best. If you are consistent in your, you know, interaction and training from early and have the mindset to say, okay, at some point in time, these kids are not going to be in my physical presence all the time. I'm not going to be there all the time to protect them and shield them. Therefore, how can I make sure that they are ready? The only way is to them with the skills that they're going to need. So you shield them for as long as you can, and then you build them up with the tools and the skills so that when it is they get exposed, they know how to handle themselves. And that's the best thing that I can say as far as you know, dealing with bringing parents up to speed. Become aware, get the resources, and practice good old-fashioned parenting.
All right. Thank you very much, Damien. I hope that our viewers are tuning in and they are being informed. The information is valuable information. And so we just had Damien Donaldson, our information technology expert, explaining to us the different things that we need to do to ensure or children's safety online. Damien, we have another question for you. And this question is, which websites should children avoid?
So it is impossible to give a list of all the possible websites that kids should avoid because there's just too many. The best way to look at it is like this. As a parent who has in mind, the best for your child, the values you want your child to have, the kind of character you want your child to develop. So anything, any content, whether it be websites, whether it be games, whether it be movies, television, music, conversation, people, anything that does not support the development of your child in the direction that you want your child to go in, you'll want to be very wary of that, right? So as far as websites and so are concerned, you have different categories of websites. And to help parents, there are tools out there, parental control software tools out there that can help you to block known undesirable websites in various categories, whether it be, violence or adult themes or whatever the case may be. And how those work basically is that somewhere at some organization, a bunch of people sit down and actually catalog websites on the internet and put them into categories. And then the software now allows you to set policy to say, okay, I want these kind of categories to be accessible or inaccessible to my child. And it works like that and can block and give you alerts and all that kind of thing. Now, even that is not foolproof because, as I said, there's a whole lot of websites out there, and it is impossible for humans to categorize everything and to put everything in a box. But it helps. The tool helps somewhat. Even though you have the tool, you still have to practice good old-fashioned parenting. There's no substitute for it. So you have to spend the time to set the tools up. You have to spend the time to go back and monitor, okay, what are the reports saying? Where is my child going? What are they doing? What am I seeing? You have to take the time and talk to your children about these things. Some parents may not be comfortable. I would say there's no room for being uncomfortable about talking to your children about these things. When they go to school, they're going to mix with children from different backgrounds who are going to bring things to them. And it's better you talk to them about certain things now when you're in a controlled space, rather than you wait until they get exposed and start down a wrong path before you try and bring it back, right? It's always better to make the investment upfront rather than to pay for the repair afterwards, right? So which website should you avoid? Anything that doesn't support the development of your child in the way that you want them to grow, right? And you have tools available that you can use to help you in terms of managing that.
Okay, all right. Thanks again, Damien. So what you shared with me just now, I heard some of this information from my husband. He's an information technology professional as well. And he introduced me to the parental controls that you just mentioned. So I am privy to that knowledge of the parental controls. And then he can see every single thing that our twins go on, every website that they visited, every activity that they carried out, we can see and monitor. But as you said, it's not foolproof. So we still have to, as Damien said before, he used the scripture. We have to train up the child in the way he should go so that when he's old, he will not depart from it. So we have to tell them from now what is right and what is wrong. They need to know what is right and what is wrong so that they can make these informed decisions, right? If they don't know what is right and what is wrong, then they will do whatever, and they don't know when they're going down the wrong road or the wrong path, right? So
Erica,
I'm very happy that...
The other thing to think about as well is that the children need to see you being involved. They need to see that you have taken an interest. They need to see that you are serious and that you are consistent. Because if they don't see that, The moment they see a little loophole or an avenue, they're going to run headlong through it. So, you know, as a parent, when it comes to these devices and so on, you have to have the mindset that the devices are not the children's. They're not sovereign territory of your children. They're your devices that you are allowing the children to use, and you reserve the right to check, audit, review, and you know, look at whatever is going on there, and they need to understand that so that it helps to keep them honest. Because you know, as Christians, we know that there's nothing that we do that is hidden from God, and parents are supposed to be God's representatives on earth. So there isn't anything your kids should be doing that you don't know about, right? That's your responsibility. This, you know, it in our modern age, parenting has, you know, taken a different direction where some parents are viewing themselves more as friends and contemporaries rather than custodians. We have a job and a responsibility as stewards, as custodians of our children, to make sure we keep them on the right track. And sometimes it means that you have to be the unpopular person, and you need to, you know, ask them, what are you doing? Look at what they're doing. Tell them, no, you can't do that. So the children see and feel your intervention and your presence in that aspect of their lives, and know that they don't have a free hand. Because trust me, if they see a loophole, kids are very, very smart, and they're exposed to a lot more than we were when we were growing up. And they're more tech savvy than many of us. And if they see one little loophole and they have an interest, they will drive their way through that if they are not held back. So we have to protect them from their own selves, right, as well, and not be afraid to do it. I mean, we're parents, so you know, don't look at what other people are doing. If other people are allowing their children to have cell phones at age 6, that doesn't mean that it's right for your child. You have to make that parental decision as to what is right. Sometimes the best controls are not even so much a technical ones. It's the low tech, no tech way, as if, do they need this now? No, they don't get it now. When they need it, then you get it and you manage it. But it's not a guarantee, or it's not a given that because we're in an age of technology and everybody else has it, that your child must have it. If there's no need for it, you put that off as long as you can until you absolutely need it, because whatever you do carries risk with it. So it's about how much risk can you tolerate.
All right, thanks a lot, Damien. That was that was a mouthful and very priceless information. And as you said, consistency is key. Children really live what they learn, you know, so they are going to follow everything that you're doing. Mommy, if you're on WhatsApp, if you're on Instagram all day and all night, they are going to want to do the same thing. Daddy, if you're on YouTube watching some car shows or anything that is technical, the boys are going to want to follow you as well. So let them see you watching good programs. Let them see you watching the sermons. Let them see you listening to good gospel music. Let them see you listening to wholesome programs, and they will want to join in. For us at our home, we're always playing gospel music, right? And we engage the children in the different programs that they are watching as well. So we follow up with them. If I see them looking too keenly at the device, at the tablet, I need to know what is happening. So I'm like, okay, what's happening there? And I said, oh, mommy, it's just a game on building. Building what? What are you building? Is it something good? Because they know that if it's not something good, I don't want them to be a part of anything that is not good. So they know that. And whenever it's Sabbath time, they have to be watching their Superbook or some Bible-based programs. So they have to know what is right and what is wrong. So we have to train them up in the right way. All right, so Damien, thanks for that. And now we move on to our next panelist. We move on to Mr. Omar Parkinson. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Omar. So Mr. Omar Farquharson, he's from Andrews Memorial Seventh-day Adventist Church, and he has an LLB from the UWI Faculty of Law, 20 years investigating crimes in Jamaica, an investigator in the Ministry of National Security, presently director of Kiwanis Club of Eastern Kingston and Port Royal. Omar is married to Mrs. Parkinson, Narisha Parkinson, my friend, and he has 2 children. He has been an Adventist all of his life, right? So now, Mr. Parkinson, let us hear what you have to say to us about children's safety on the road, online, and at home.
Well, thanks for the kind of introduction, Erica. My experience with work with kids, and especially in work I used to do back in the JCF, I have some very sad experience, and I must share one as before I get into my full discussion. I was asked to sit in an investigation that had to do with a child that was kidnapped. I'll cut it very short. But what happened in that investigation, I realized that a lady was involved with this gentleman, but she had a child before they were together. And she wanted out of that relationship, and she asked him to exit relationship. And he didn't take it very lightly. They live in the same community. So what he did, he went to the house, took the child, and with the intention, or with the guys that he's going to, this guy that he's going to take him to buy ice cream, took away the child and eventually killed that child. But what I realized in that investigation, very importantly, the point I want to make is that that child trusted that man. So be careful as parents who we trust with our kids, because and who we allow our kids to develop that trust in. Because in his confession, he clearly stated that the child said to him, "Mommy trusted you, why would you do this to me?" You can see the child was comfortable with him to go that distance with him. That's a very important point I want to make. But most importantly, as parents, we had a responsibility to God and to them to grow them up and to protect them, grow up in the right and proper way for the kingdom of Christ. And secondly, we have a right towards those kids to protect them. As parents, it's a very big responsibility. But with the advent of the whole COVID-19 virus affecting the world, and Jamaica is no exception, you find that a lot of things now become more prevalent, or the criminals, the predators have more access, even online now, with more the kids going more online now to do their work online. Similarly, the predators are more active online. So you find that even with the laws being amended to support child grooming and child pornography and those things, it is still happening. And it become more prevalent now because they have more time online and kids are spending more time online. So we as parents have our responsibility have actually increased instead of decreased, so we are home more because kids are more online, predators are more online, and we still have to work. We have to still juggle to ensure that we are able to provide. But as the tech person, Damon would have mentioned, there are some tools that can be put in place to protect our kids. But one of the most important things is that nothing beats old-time parenting, supervision, nothing beats that. And develop that trust with your child, that your child trusts you, that he would expose and tell you everything. I give you another example here where I live now. Gentleman is very friendly. I think he have good intention, but he always want to give gifts, and he give it to the sister. I wouldn't give it to us. He give it to the sister, give it to my daughter. And I realized, and I went to him and I said to him, for your own protection and mine, don't give children gifts. It's a bad practice. And the law was amended to support even that, to say it's considered to be child grooming when you start to friend the child at a very young age. And so please look out for these things. When you find people get too friendly and giving gifts, you have a right as a parent to be paranoid about your child. Nothing is wrong with it. It's normal, trust me. And it's the right thing to do. Be inquisitive, know exactly everything that the child is doing. And it's hard for persons above my generation and above to to keep up with technology. Yes, I'm not that young as I look. But the point I'm making though is that we need to be able to understand the technology, the games, the resource that they're using, even the basics of basic. If you don't understand it, something is wrong with it. You need to be able to understand exactly what is that program saying, because there are hidden things behind most of these games and things that we need to understand. If that game or that program that they're operating allow for live streaming, for them to send pictures and give a location, those are bad signs. Those are signs that you don't need your child to be in that program or playing that game. Once there's a few things that we can look out for. And I tell you something, I was reading about the other day, and Mr. Robert Kiyosaki, his book is called I think it was a recent book, Robert, I remember that one, but it was Fake Teachers, yes. And Robert said in that book, that point hit home, he said in that book that the best teacher is actually YouTube. So parents, go on YouTube and YouTube what that is about, what that's about, and you'll find it. Everything is on YouTube. Google it and it come up. So don't be afraid to Google it. You have to type it in the Google and the YouTube. That's simple, and it tell you everything about it. And your person will teach you about these programs and tell you what are the bad and the good of these programs. We're in a tech savvy age now where all these things are made so simple. That's what technology is about, to make things simple. And I'm not so tech savvy, but as I said, I YouTube everything. Even my vehicles, I YouTube everything. I can tell my mechanic everything about my vehicle because I YouTube it. Similarly, kids are very smart. Our generation of kids are very smart. So don't be afraid to start telling them things very, very early. Your private parts, if anybody touch it, tell mommy and daddy. You must also be able to know the person that your kids have issues with. I can tell everybody my daughter don't like and who she will not talk, because she's very, you can see it in her actions. I know my daughter, if I'm a teacher at school, the principal, she tell me these things and I can see in action. Like my daughter come among someone who she doesn't see eye to eye with something. I can know it. You must be able to pick up these things, naturally observe your children and how they react around certain people and some people, and know these things. Because the time has passed now where we are a Christian nation, fine, but there are a lot of different beliefs and cultures, norms here, and practice in Jamaica, and that are not, we call it now, what we are used to. It's a very diverse religious belief now in Jamaica now. It's gone are the days when you have a few religions and we say those are the persons, or the denomination, I should say. No, it's very much different. So people have different views and different beliefs and different practices and different cultures, norms. And so when we see something has been based on our religious and our cultural upbringing, in their culture, in their belief, and in their upbringing, it's a normal thing. Pedophilia, it's been something that has been with us for quite a while now, but it's been growing. It's become a commercial, international thing now. Human trafficking, for example, is becoming very serious. Up to date, we cannot account for the persons who are missing in Jamaica. Find some of them over time, realize some were killed, but people are still not accounted for. The persons who leave rural Jamaica and come to Kingston to say they're going to work in a home or as a sitter, and then you find that they end up in clubs, in nightclubs, doing other things. So we have to be careful. And these are young girls. I'm not talking about adults, even though with adults it's wrong. Children under 16 years old we found them in these clubs doing all type of ungodly and ungodly things. So we have to be careful and be vigilant about everything around us. Our society, our citizens have a role to play in protecting our children. It still takes a village to raise a child, and we cannot drift away from that. If I'm at church now and I'm going to step away from my kids, I can always say, Cheryl and Uncle Gerard, Uncle Shaggy, look at Azana for me, look at my children for me. We are supposed to be able to do that similarly in where we live, in our community, and things like that. Because it's important that we still maintain that a certain level of protection as related to people that we can trust to say, we can leave the child here, we can allow the person of supervision on this child. Not all of us have grandparents and brothers and sisters close by. I'm one of those privileged persons, but we have to have, that's why the church is there to assist us. And importantly, I realized since I've been in the church for all my life, that persons who are allowed around kids are vetted. And it is a good thing. We need to continue and ensure that it's at every level. In Kiwanis, where I serve as a Kiwanian, every person who have to do direct with children, they have to police records and they are vetted, properly scrutinized, because this is very serious. We need to continue to build on these programs and these activities that we do to ensure we protect children, wherever they are. Because not everyone that comes to church for the sake of worship. And we don't fool ourselves. Not everyone comes to church for worship. We come with other motives. So we as Adventists and Christians have to protect. So we cannot tell God that we thought that that person was a Christian, so we allow it. We have a responsibility to God and to them to protect them. I don't want to get too deep into some of what I do, but my experience have shown me that a lot of the persons who abuse kids are persons who the child become develop trust in that person. It's normally very close persons. When kids are missing or kidnapped or they have been abused, is always someone who's very close to that child. Someone who most of the time we can have a level of trust in. You have seen on the news a lot of the persons who have been missing and been raped or sexually assaulted. They're assaulted by persons who are known to the parents and known to the children. So as parents, you have a right to be paranoid about the safety of your children. Nothing is wrong with it. Be inquisitive. Know what your child is doing online, where he goes, when he goes to school, have a rapport with the teacher, the principal, understand, feel these persons out and know them for yourself. All right? So I think that would be my 2 cents for now.
All right. Thank you very much, Omar, for sharing your stories and your experiences in this matter. This is very important matter, especially at this time in our society, in this pandemic. So how do you feel about parents beating their children and saying that it's an act of love? Parents, grandparents beating their children to tears till they're bawling down the place and they're trembling and they're in terror. How do you tackle this type of situation? What do you think that we should do as parents?
Well, you think about it, once it reaches that stage, it's really abuse, and that's illegal now. That's a different permit you've gone into when the child become physically, it become physical. That's a different permit you're going to know. That's illegal. That's abuse. There are many other ways and means of disciplining a child away from beating a child. My method with my children, I take away the tablet from them and just affect them more than anything else, because they have a special time for their little time and they do their own thing. As I know, a lot of they call that Bible stories on her tablet and things like that. And she that's very important to her. That's her thing. If I take away tablet from her, it affects her more than if I should teach her, really. I was grown though in a culture where beating is a normal thing. I tell you how serious it was. We as boys, we used to go to the river. I'm from the country, so we go to the river, catch fish and shoot birds and all that type of stuff. And my uncles would beat, and my cousins when they go to the river and come back on a daily basis. And every day they get beaten today and they go back to the river tomorrow. If that beating was ever effective, they would not go back the other day. And when they come, they said to them, so go and break the stick and bring it to me. And they beat the same stick they break and bring it to them. I would not do that. I run away in a way, but they would do that. But the point I want to make though is that my experience and what I've seen to this day, beating that child doesn't help any at all. The child becomes more paranoid, don't trust people, don't express himself. That's what you get from a child when you beat them and physically abuse them. A child who sit down and talk to, and you do other ways of punishing the child, the other more amicable ways, those work far more effective than punishing a child, beating a child. I find my father would say, the Bible said, spare the rod and spoil the child, because my father believed in beating and the whole public. Growing up in the country, I remember my principal would line up all 100 students and beat them. I beat until him taking towel and wipes it and put it on and beat again and tap again. And the whole man is beaten for late for school. And I don't know if any of this really work. There's no evidence of it. There's no scientific evidence that this will work to direct kids away from deviant behavior. Most of those persons who were late, probably they're still late today if you check at their workplace. They're still living late. They get beaten for it when they were a child. So it's a misconception. It's a belief that it doesn't exist really. There's nothing to prove that beating that child really helps. You have to be firm with kids because there are certain stages when a child reaches friendship, you have to be firm with them. But it's best, my sibling, I've been a father for years. I should say to you guys that I've been playing father role for about 20 odd years now. Yes, I'm not a stranger. I'm not new to fathering. But most of my younger siblings that I actually grew up, the only father they know is really me. I never beat them. I talk to them, sit and talk to them. And those boys are PhD, they're contributing anywhere in the world they're contributing to society meaningfully. And they can reason, which is very important. Is that I don't think the corporal punishment will work for those boys. As a matter of fact, most of my cousins who were beaten, those guys become so hard-headed because each time you beat them, they get tougher and it can become a normal thing to them after a while. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in at all. It's a belief that a false belief that it works, but it doesn't really work. The punishment that is most effective is that which the child will understand when you explain to the child why that is wrong and why if it does this, what will happen. My mother will say to me, if you do that, what do you think would happen? You think that's the right thing you did? And explain to me why you did that. She will put questions to you to make you question yourself. I remember growing up as a boy in the country, and if I walk to school and I don't tell Miss Mac and Brother Frank good morning and Mr. Ina good morning, they will, when I go back home in the evening, I will know. Because everybody in that village raised us. Everyone in that village responsible for us. And there were never any incident of people going missing or person. This will never happen. Children being abused. They've been abused in those years with the beating, of course. They won't escape that. That was the thing there. I don't know what they get out of it, but beating was a thing when I was growing up. But the point I want to make is that the village raised us and everyone sees us. So you have to be clean going to school. You have to tuck in your clothes, certain things you have to do, because if you don't do it, my mother and father will know. And my father very strict, man. He's a very rough, but he doesn't have any white side, just straight gray. Yeah, but the point I want to make though is that I don't think that the corporal punishment, that beating, that it doesn't work. I don't think it works. I don't have any evidence to support that it works to this day. From my personal experience, and if you research in science, it doesn't prove anything. Even with hardened criminals, those who are given the more softer treatment, they rehabilitate faster and much better and come back to be meaningfully contributing to society after their term in prison. Those who are given the pig treatment, the rough treatment, they come back and they double up, they get even more wickeder. They come back more violent, and they just want to tear away society. So everything works better when the punishment is done a certain way. The less lethal, the less fatal, the less brutal, the less painful, it works much better. Based on my experience and what I know.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Omar. All right, so that was something
say one thing about that? Could I just say one thing about the beating thing? I just want to say that I agree with what Omar said, and to my experience and from my understanding, I think the whole corporal punishment thing loses its effectiveness once a child reaches a point that they can reason and communicate. You see, before that, when they are learning about the world and all of that, you might give them a tap on the hand if they go and pick up something dangerous or if they're doing something that they shouldn't do, so that you associate a negative consequence with a particular action. But the moment that child becomes able to reason, that loses its effectiveness. You now have to move into the mode where you explain and you talk and all of that kind of thing, because the corporal punishment, all it's going to do is teach them to be resentful after that, right? So I agree. It's not something that I think is as effective as people believe it is, and it's not the direction that I would recommend that people go in.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Damian. So we just got a question from the YouTube chat. Is there a place for spanking in the home? But you basically just answered that question by saying that it is not effective. Corporal punishment, beating the children, parents or grandparents, aunts and uncles beating the children, it is not effective as how it used to be back in those old days. Remember that things and times are changing. So as the years go by, the society becomes different. So there are different rules, there's a different culture. So basically, what Omar and Damian are saying is that there's no place for spanking right now because it's not effective. I've spoken to children about beating. And you know what they told me? They said to me that, Auntie or Mommy, spanking doesn't make any difference because the beating is going to wear off. So the beating is going to wear off after a while. So it is not effective. What is more effective, they would tell you, is if you take away their toys or take away their tablets or their laptops, anything that they see as a prize, anything that they see as important. So if you should take that away from them, then that is more punishment to them than spanking them or beating them. Because nowadays, beating is seen as abuse.
Yeah, because I mean,
All right. So we have, go ahead, Omar, you have something to say? Sure.
Even there's no provision in the Child Protection Act, Domestic Violence Act, like the Persons Act that support child beating of a child. None of those acts support it, and so once the law doesn't support it, then it's illegal. Yeah. So as I said, I don't think it's effective. I don't know if anyone can provide scientific evidence to support or to counter that position, but I don't know of it. In my personal experience, I don't see anything within that type of behavior that actually groom people into be the good people of society based on the fact that they were beaten as a child. I don't know if it worked. I never see it work effectively. I'm not saying that some of the persons who weren't beaten back then are not meaningfully contributing to society today and are good people and have reached a level where they're giving back to society in a way that you could say that is a result of corporal punishment. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. There are a few exceptions in everything that we do, but on a majority basis, I don't think it is effective. That's my position on that.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Omar. Thanks for that. Another question just came in from the YouTube chat. Are there any signs to look out for if a child has been sexually molested? Are there any signs to look out for if a child has been sexually molested? Omar, you can take that one.
Yes, one of the most obvious signs, most of those childs are withdrawn, and they tend to have issue with showing and that type of thing, because they're withdrawn, and you find them by themselves, and they don't carry themselves as how they used to carry themselves. And so one of the signs I think is very obvious with those with kids who are molested. And I think even in the courts, we're very smart. What I observed is very well-learned judges will, if it's allowed in the court, they allow that child around that person to see how the child reacts towards that person. Because if a person really abuses a child or a young lady, when that person see that person, naturally, whole demeanor changes. You see the fright, the fear has come out in that person. So yes, there are signs that you can see. The person, how the person carries himself, they are withdrawn. Yeah, just some of the signs are like that. Based on my experience, my experience investigating those matters, but I realized those are some of the signs that you can know. If that person come in the room with that person in the room, you see the withdrawal and first start to cover up himself and draw away. You see that type of behavior, that fear, that fright, and it brings back memories. And even in the courts, when they're giving evidence at times, going over that story, sometimes you can see it in there, the fear, everything come back to them. Like they're reliving that situation, and the courts try to avoid as much as possible, where you have to bring that witness on the stand several times to give the same. It traumatizes the person. So once that person is affected, a child is affected, or even an adult, You can see it in their behavior. Their behavior changes. It's a violation of a person, and it's something that goes to the core. Emotionally, psychologically, physically, it affects the entire being. No matter what that young that child is, you will see it in their behavior.
Okay, all right, thanks, Omar. So conversation is very important. It's very important for us as parents to have a relationship with our children. So they should see us as persons that they can trust, right? Persons that they can talk to about anything. I tell my children that they should tell me everything. And sometimes when I say that to them, they tell me everything, like even that they saw a lizard outside eating another lizard. Like everything they will tell me. So I appreciate that. Sometimes it's information overload, but it is better than them not telling you anything. And you can see the difference, the changes in their behavior, right? Their behavior pattern may have altered a bit. So we have to ensure that we have a relationship, a good relationship with our children so that we can pick up if anything is going on. All right. Another question that I have from the chat. Okay, so at what age should parents start talking to their children about personal safety, and that's sexually and physically? At what age should parents start talking to their children about personal safety?
So my personal view on that issue, and I think it's supported by even the expert. Once the child is intelligent enough to understand all of this, even I realize even with my mother, the older person do things a bit different. My mother will say to my child, to the fire, hot, hot. So the child become aware that that thing burns because it keeps saying to her hot, hot until even before that child can speak, the action that she does show that the danger is hot. Top on the hand and say, hot, burn, baby, burn, baby. Similarly, as I said, no, that will decide, will be determined by how intelligent that child is. Because some children are much faster than others. And in that case, some child, you can start very early with them to say, this is danger, you cannot do this, you cannot go and sleep by yourself, you can, some basic stuff can be laid out at the home, don't touch the matches, don't do this, don't do that, don't touch that, like burn, shock, baby, some simple things. As the child gets older now, you be very frank and to the point. The child is understanding now. Nobody's supposed to touch you on your private part, but it touch you there, you tell daddy, you tell mommy. No one is supposed to do this. Straight to the point. This child is smart enough to know these things. And you will be surprised when they say this to children. Anyone ever do this to you before? And they start telling everything. Even they sit down and say, oh, well, auntie can do that, auntie's taking care of you. Mommy, that grandma can do this, grandma taking care of you. And grandma is an adult, and grandma loves you, grandma is protect you. But you give them those persons. Anyone else, tell daddy, tell mommy. But you straight to the point, don't pretty it up people and say it is this and call it. And do not call the penis steely. It is a penis. The vagina is a vagina. Say to them as it is. Because if we don't say to them enough, they will learn in another environment that is not what we want. It's bad for them. So say to them as it is now. In the science book, it is a penis, it is a vagina, and the science book. Say to them as it is. That's what it is. This steely and this name given the sexual parts, it's not a good thing. Spell it out and let them, and don't feel this. There's a little phobia about saying it. Say it as it is to the children. Let them know that this is what it is and this is what it is for. As soon as they understand what it's for, let them know what it is for, and they can understand it. But point it out very, very early. No one's going to touch you on your penis and your vagina. Clearly and straight to them. Anyone touch you there, tell mommy, tell daddy. And I think it should be even in school, like a song in school to say, touch me here, touch me one time. Make it be a song in the schools to let them know that this is serious. Because gone are the days when we could say it's not going to happen, or those days are long gone. It's happening now. So let us be to the point and say it to kids. Safety at home, yes, we are supposed to tell them some other basic things. The light switch, the plug, the socket, the gas cylinders, the stoves, I teach my daughter to cook some basic stuff for herself. I always say to myself that suppose I rush out and mom rush out and she dies here and she's busy. Prepare some simple thing for her, like a cornflakes or milk, an egg, things like that. But what I said to her now, the stove light itself, fine. But once you run the stove, you allow auntie to be there or daddy or mommy to monitor you. I've been cooking for mom 10 years old, but I don't think I don't think she could handle that, even though, well, I don't think she can handle it, but I prefer if when she's doing it, an adult is there close by to monitor her in the stove. Because it's good to teach kids to be, children to be independent, but it must be in a responsible way. Because trust me, it can be very tragic. Simple gas stove there, a little mishandling, and it's a big explosion. It's a big explosion, people. Serious business. So we have to be careful while they're around those equipment. Find out you need to teach them these things, but you must also do it in a very responsible way. Ensure that you protect them. There are other things that we could speak about. Disaster, flooding, fire. These things are important also. You tell them to move to higher points. For example, I said to my daughter that school teaches also about the whole earthquake situation. We live in an earthquake zone. This is important. That we teach them about the door jam, those strong areas of the house that is deck. It's cast in concrete, so it's very strong. If the building could tear apart, those structures that the door jam would stay up because it's actually cast in concrete right around. That's why they say earthquake went to the door jam. The reason is because how the building is designed, that aspect of the building is casted in concrete and steel, so it's very firm, very strong. If the building should fall apart, that particular section will still be standing firm. So you give them the explanation why they will need to go to these parts of the building. It's very stronger than other parts of the building. Fine. Secondly, for like flooding, higher ground is always important. They can climb until they get rescue or call for help. And you make them be aware of numbers to call, like the police number 119. Those things are supposed to know these things. Tell to your kids, pick up the phone, call this, if just in case happen. I was home one day and I was by the pool and Azania thought I went to walk and she went on the road. But I always said to her, if you don't see mommy and daddy, always come back home to the gate. And she did exactly that. I was by the pool and somebody said, somebody let me eat the look of some of that advice, like Azania's advice. When I look outside, she was outside. But she came back to, based on what I give her the instruction, anything happen, you come back to home. Home is where you come back to. And she come back home. She went up the road, walk. She didn't see us come right back to the gate. She was crying. But the point I'm making is that she followed the instruction very clearly, which is what is important. So give kids certain instructions. If this should happen, this is what you should do. This happened, this is what you should do. My mother is not around. Anyone try to do it, give them the clear instruction. Make it very simple that they can remember to follow exactly instruction to give to them. But we have to put things in place because not all the time, as much as we want to be around them for all of their lives, we cannot be around them for all their lives. And at some stage, they have to move on their own. They'll go to school on their own. Some of these kids will go to boarding institutions. You have to protect them. I was a boarded student for years. I boarded at high school, I boarded at college. And it's my training from home that equipped me to handle those environments and survive and be very successful at my studies. It is these environment and these preparation, these training through church, because the church played a very important role in my development as a young man growing up, because my dad died very early, and I must say the church has been very important. And integral my whole entire development, the church has been very important. For role models for males, the church was always very important for me. So my dad died when I really needed a real role model in my life. So the men in the church was always there to give me that guidance. And so, but the point I want to get back to is that we are supposed to be in a position that if our kids should be left alone, they are able to remember the basic and simple instruction, what we give them, so they can find safety. And we don't have to be worrying ourselves. And so because we know the instruction. Once they're smart kids, they will follow instruction. I've seen Azana several times where I said to her, do this. And when the situation arises, she did exactly that. Must be able to do these things with our kids. All right?
All right. Thank you very much, Omar. Daniel, do you have anything to say about that question?
Yes, Omar hit it right on the head. I think that as soon as your child is able to hear, respond, you should be created an environment where what they soak up, what they absorb, includes their own, things about being safe and their personal safety. It's not a topic that, you should put off until you think, oh, they're old enough or whatever. That's like basic and fundamental. So I tell you, even from when I have a story when my children were born, both of them, and I'd have to be changing diapers. You have them on the changing table, which is pretty high off of the ground. I tell them, keep still. Now you're thinking, they're not going to understand what you have to say at that age. They're infants. They kept still. They know anytime that they say keep still and you're consistent with it and your tone and everything. After a while, they pick it up. They understand what you mean. And they keep still. They don't move. If I have to turn my back to pick up a diaper or something like that, keep still, don't move, hands up. Turn, come back. Hands up, keep still, don't move. And you consistently give them that kind of, nurturing, that kind of reinforcement as they progress, as they grow. And it will stick with them, it will work. And just as Omar said, you might tell them something today, and then the situation arises where they put it into practice because you would have given them that, you'd have planted that seed from before. I'll tell you, even the other day, we heard some loud explosions sounding like potentially gunshots or something like that nearby. And right away, my kids know that there's a point in the house that you assemble because how it is structured, bullets can't get there, right? It's the safest part in the house at that point. So everybody just goes and wait until everything is all right, wait until things seem okay, and then we can proceed and go about our business. But things like that, you put it into your kids. Where are the safe zones in your home? What do you do if this happens? What do you if that happens? There's no age that is too early to start bringing that knowledge and that type of information to them, and they will absorb it. They absorb everything. Whether you intend them to or not, they watch you, they learn, and they mimic. So the time to start teaching them the right things is from day one.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you both. So, viewers, it's very important for us as parents to be the first teachers for our children. We are the first teachers. They shouldn't have to go out on the road to hear about sex education or about how to take care of their personal space. They should know how to protect themselves. So if they see that someone is dangerous, then they know that they shouldn't go towards that person. They should run away from that person or keep away from that person. And they should know that no one should touch their private parts. That includes the vagina, the penis, the bottom, the breast. For those young girls who are developing, they need to know all of that, right? And they need to know that no one is supposed to touch these places or put anything in any of these places, right? So about the home, yes, it's extremely important for us to let them know the different danger spots in the home. Omar spoke about the cylinder, the stove, so he doesn't allow Azania to go to the stove. Yes, at this age, they are eager to learn how to cook and so on, but they should not be lighting the stove. They should not be handling matches. Yes, you're going to show them how it's done, but they should know that this is dangerous. This can cause an explosion. This can cause a fire, right? They're not supposed to put anything in the sockets, right? Nothing should go in the socket. Don't put any iron, don't put anything, any piece of wire, nothing should go there. You'll be electrocuted. Let them know these things. Do not shelter them from this type of information that will protect them. So it's important, essentially, for us as parents to be the first teachers for our children. There are many questions coming up in the chat. Let me go to one of them right now. Do you know if anything is being done by the government about street children? Do you know? if anything is being done by the government about street children. Omar, I see you're taking that one.
Well, let me attempt that question. Well, the thing about it, is that what we need to understand is that most of those kids you see sometime in the streets, they are really associated with some gang of the sort. You might not know that they are forced to do what they are doing at times. But the Child Care and Protection Act provide that every child has a right to education. And if a child is attending a school and is unable to do to provide to attend the school based on financial concern, there are provision in the act that government is supposed to provide the necessary requirement and needs for that child to get that education. Those are provision in the Constitution of Jamaica. Not only that, it's backed by international law, why these provisions are made in our laws to ensure that kids are given a chance to be educated. But if persons are not edified with that information to know that these kids are not supposed to be at school time, normally parents get charged for it for one, because that's a child in need of care and protection right away, and based on the fact that he's on the street doing school hours and doing that. There are many things that can come out of this, but I know what the police normally does is to keep the child, take the child into the home, find the parents when sometimes they are charged, because it's a breach of law. The Child Care Protection Act provide for that. There are the laws that provide for that, and for persons, the parents to be prosecuted, and the child to be put into homes where they are properly provided for, protected. But it happens over and over again, and some of these children are children who have been in home and they run away from the home sometimes. So what you find, it's a kind of a delicate balance to find the parents at times. And then the children are left in a position also that's a very precarious position, because some of these children, they are given this battle up space. They don't know that they have the right to these facilities. To say that you're right to an education. You don't have to be on the street out here begging and doing what you're doing, because the government has responsibility to protect you. That's why we have something called the PATH program. Those programs are implemented and designed to deal with some of these issues. For parents have issues sending their children to school, that's used by the government of these programs. These programs are funded by international organizations who provide the resources for these programs to be implemented and supported. So it's not a matter of the resources not there, it is provided. Government made it in their coffers every year specifically for these purposes, for children who parents can't afford to send them to school, because education is a right in this country. So yes, there are things in place, but if the matter is not brought to the attention of the police and the relevant authorities, then you will find this perpetuating. As I said before when I started out, some of these children are forced to do what they're doing by gangs. And so we have to be careful as to understand the situation around some of these kids being on the street. But the provisions are there to ensure that these kids are not on the street, because a child on the street is exposed to so many things. Human trafficking, the predators, there are a lot of predators for boys, even for boys now. Gone are the days when we say, oh, he's a boy, he's good in the street. But when I was growing up as a boy, we could go on the street and nobody busy with us. Now it's different now in our society. There are predators for boys, specifically boys. They prey on boys. And so it's for these things to be brought to the authorities' attention. There's a human trafficking unit at CTOC that deal with these type of issues. There are the Ministry of unit that deal with these specific issues. But if persons are not educated and know what to do, then we'll have this problem keep perpetuating. But citizens have a role to play in ensuring that when you see these boys on the street, they call the police and let them know that this boy is on the street and it's 9 o'clock in the morning, should be at school, he should be on his tablet doing his work at home. So I hope I touched on that point sufficiently.
Yes, thank you, Omar. You gave us some good information there. But there are still children who are on the road, those young boys that you'd see at the stoplights, wiping the windscreens and so on. And many times they get themselves into a lot of problems. So there are still more programs that we need to put in place for these children, these street children. All right, so the next question that I have for you is, do abusers have a certain profile? Do abusers have a certain profile?
Yeah, what you
David, you
find,
want to take that, or Omar? Okay, Omar,
I
go
think
ahead, Omar.
Damon can speak, touch on the point he wishes to. But what I think, one of the things I realize is that it's getting a person in a position where you feel like you have an obligation towards that person. So, for example, you owe that person a favor. That's what they will do. So they'll give the children things over time. And then they say, I give you this, I give you that. How come you don't do anything for me? They get in a position where they feel that they owe a favor to return a favor. And so some of these persons are very friendly and they're nice and love their own kids and very to their own kids. And that's the reason when I started out, I said we are supposed to be very inquisitive and be paranoid about the persons who come around your kids or your children. But yes, there is a profile, and it's not a specific fit that all persons who fall in these categories are necessarily fitting that profile, because it varies. But yes, there are signs that you can know that something is wrong. The person is just extra friendly with the children. He's always want to be around the kids. You want to be the kids away from the parent. Some things you can pick up and something not right. The child at times are very, receptive to these persons. But the thing about it is that when the abuse starts, you will see the child drifting away a bit. You can see it in the child behavior that he's not so comfortable around this person anymore. So there are signs that you can pick up, but parents have to be very observant of those behaviors and be very curious, be inquisitive when you come on to your children, as I said, and be paranoid. Don't just be paranoid. It's your child, your responsibility as an adult. Damien, you were saying.
Oh, well, I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but based on things that I've seen and in my, experiences that I may have had in my line of work, as it relates to looking at some of the cyber crimes and cyberbullying and things of that nature. There are certain themes that tend to come out in terms of how abusive behavior manifests and what kind of motivates it. There's an element of control that is at play, whereby the abuser seeks to exert control over the person that they are targeting for the abuse. They have a need to feel as if they are powerful or they're in control. So, that can manifest in different ways, as there are also very different types of abuse. There's not just the physical abuse or the sexual abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's financial abuse, So all of those things, there's an element of control and power play that comes into it, right? So if you're looking at your child to try and determine whether they are going through any of these kind of issues, there are some things that may manifest. They may tend to be very anxious, or they may tend to be reclusive, retreat, trying to avoiding contact and things like that, or apologizing profusely, kind of attitudes that give the impression that somehow somebody's pushing down their self-esteem or their sense of self-worth. Because that is a common theme in abusive behavior, right? To exert control or to exalt the sense of power and control in the abuser, he seeks to suppress the other person, suppress the other person's sense of self-worth and that sort of thing. So there are some, common themes that tend to ring out in cases. And as Amar said, not every case is going to be the same. Some people exhibit abusive behavior because they actually have some sort of psychological problem, or some people have personality disorders. And even average people from time to time, depending on situations and circumstances, can engage in abusive behavior, if they're in certain situations. Sometimes they're in relationships in which there's abuse going both ways. at points in time. So it's not a one size fit all or cut and dry thing to say, okay, abusers look like this. The truth of the matter is that everybody is capable of exhibiting abusive behavior at some point in time, right? Some more so than others. And it's important for us as parents to really look out to see, you know, any changes in behavior of our children or any manifestation of behavior that could indicate that, hey, something is wrong. Sometimes if children become fixated on particular issues, topics, types of behavior, or, you know, things that seem a bit out of the ordinary, or, you know, a sudden occurrence, that may be cause for you to investigate a little deeper. You know, if you're once polite, kind child, all of a sudden seems to be more short-tempered and you know, abrasive in their behavior, that could be an indication of something, you know. So all of these things to look out for. I mean, the important thing as a parent is that you really need to know your child, you really need to observe your child, so that if there are any changes or anything that seems out of place, then that's a point for you to jump in and start digging at the people.
All right. Thank you both, Damian and Omar. So, yes, abusers, they do have a profile, but there are some abusers that are very unassuming. You would never think that they would do anything to harm your children. And sometimes these persons are within the family situation or family setting. You may have an uncle or an aunt or a nephew or a cousin. So you have to be very careful and you have to educate your children about these issues. So they need to know how to protect their personal space and to know whenever someone is being out of place. All right, we have a few more questions. The questions are coming in, guys. All right, so this question: many kids are being used as props to solicit, especially in New Kingston. What is the police or the CPFSA is doing about this? So kids are being used as props in the New Kingston area. What is the police or the CPFSA? What is it that they're doing about this situation?
Well,
Omar?
the
That one
props you
is for
speak
you.
about is when you find, if I understand the question clearly, that's where the parent or an adult of a child and say the child is sick and they want money to get to the hospital. That's what you're talking about. The child is posing with an adult to say that this child need help and, you know, child has this and has that and you need money to bring the child to hospital or to buy the medication. That's the case that we're talking about. That's it. I want to understand the question. That's what the question is asking. Eric, I don't think you get
So
it.
the child is being used
I'm
as
trying
props.
to understand the question.
Or you're trying to understand the
Yes,
question?
okay. But,
Okay,
yeah,
basically
so
what
I
I
want
get
to know
from
is
it,
where,
basically the children, they're being used to lure persons into this kind of trade. Do you know of anything that is being done by the police or the CPFSA about this situation?
well, where that occurs any at all, I can speak specifically as to what will be done about it. The matter is reported to the Human Trafficking Unit at S.D.A. I know they're acting it immediately because we are ranked internationally and we're at a tier 2 now. And tier 2 we are now is not one of the best level we want to be. I basically say that you have a lot of work to do. So I know that that unit is mandated to investigate and prosecute these matters. So if that's the case any at all, as I said to you, the act, the Human Trafficking Act provisions are there in that act to prosecute persons for that in those type of behavior. That child should not be out in the street doing that type of thing with a parent at no point in time. So it's against the laws for one. And as I said to you, there are mandated units and institutions that deal with those issues. And if it's brought to those personal attention, I know that they will act on it immediately. They will not hesitate to act on it if it is brought to them, but only if it is brought to their attention, because they don't know. And how the police operates, we operate based on what citizens provide us with. It's about 10,000 police officers in the JCF, and we have 2.7 million people. So what I know is that without the citizens of this country, we will not have an effective police force. We need to tell us what's happening and provide us with those information. And then they will act upon it. I can't say we, because I'm not associated with JCF like that anymore. So I can say they will act upon it based on that, based on what we get, information that they get from those citizens. So the citizens have a role to play in providing that information to the police. And I know the Ministry of Security have provisions and units in place to deal with those issues specifically, because it affects us internationally. It affects how we're supported by international organizations. United Nations will not support a lot of our programs here if they observe these breaches. And the tier that we fall under now is one of those breaches where we're kind of on the balance there, which is not looking good for us. So these are instances that the government will react to very speedily through that unit at CETA.
All right. Thank you, Omar. Okay, I hope that response helped with that question for the viewer who sent that question. Another question for you. Too many children are going missing. What can we do to minimize this situation? Too many children. We heard this on the news so often, but we as parents need to find ways that we can implement so that this is minimized, so that this is eventually stopped. What is your take on this?
One other thing, Erica, that there's a country have a responsibility for our children. As I said earlier, take a village to raise a child, and I give my experience growing up as a boy in the country, is that nothing happens in total seclusion in this country. Someone knows something, someone sees something. But if we become a selfish people that we forget that we are supposed to be our brother's keepers, this behavior will continue. It is a sad reality that when I look at the monument that we have downtown for children who are lost in a tragic condition, that monument is almost filled out with names, and it's not that old. It's just a few years that monument was implemented. So it's a real concern. We have to go back to the days when we protect each other. That's what we have to go back to. Those days where if I walk down the street and I don't tell Miss Mark good morning, I better Frank good morning, my parents know. My parents know that they'll ask me, why did you pass and didn't tell? Sometimes Miss Mark is not even on her veranda, she's on the back, and I didn't say, Miss Morning, Miss Mark, and shout it out for her to hear me. We need to go back to that stage where we look out for each other. Technology have increased a lot in the world and in Jamaica, but we need to use it for the right purposes. We have cameras at home. Sometimes the police want information. People never come out and say, no, my camera, I saw something else. My camera, they will never come out until we approach them. I know that there is a misconception about police and sharing information, but there are avenues, there are good, reputable avenues where information can be shared without it leading back to the wrong sources. We have many programs, and many programs are sponsored by international organizations also for this specific purpose, to ensure that information not go back to the wrong persons. So there's no excuse for not sharing information. There's income is there. There are many non-government organizations that you can share information with that will bring back to the police. So it is a concern that it affects every citizen of this country, that we are concerned that people are going missing and we cannot account for them. And as I said earlier, gone are the days when you could say denomination in Jamaica is only Christianity. The belief and the culture and the practices are here are totally different. If you watch Religious Hard Talk in Jamaica and any program back in the program on TV, you realize so many different religions, so many different beliefs are here. We need to understand what some of these people believe in. It is known, it's not news that organs of persons have been sold and markets that and outside of Jamaica, and organs have been sold, and it's a big business, illegal organ trade. where people will purchase organs of person, kidneys and those parts of the bodies and heart and those parts of the body. So we know that those markets exist, but there's no evidence to say that those persons who we cannot find in Jamaica are going into those markets, or their body parts are going to the market. There's no evidence to support that. But the point I want to make is that nothing happening in total seclusion in Jamaica. Everything has to be done. Someone must have seen something. Someone must have heard something. But this information needs to be shared with the relevant authority for it to be effectively dealt with. Because if that don't happen, it will continue. And as I said, we must have grown so much apart as a people, as a nation, that we are not our brothers' keepers anymore. The Bible never wrong, my sister, my brother, is that we are supposed to be our brothers' keepers. We are supposed to protect each other. My neighbors, when my mother leave my house when I was a boy, I could stay at my neighbor's house for 2-3 days. My mother have to leave and go somewhere to a funeral or some family in some other part of Jamaica. I could stay there and I'm well fed, I'm showered, I'm protected. And there's no concern for her, because we grew up in a setting where people look out for each other. When I'm from in the country, I can walk into any yard, knock on the gate and say, I pick to my gun back, to orange on the back. I don't have to I just say, Miss Mark, good morning. I'll pick to orange, and that's her property. And I'm telling you, I'm going to pick orange. There's no problem at all. I'll go pick orange. So to me, the tree at the back to the fence is a sweeter tree. That's what she going to say to me. Because we grow up in a community where we look out for each other. And most of those persons might know, as I'm a big man now, they're fade away, and the younger generation might not be so responsible to each other. They are more divided. And with technology, we find ourselves on our phones and on our computer, we don't get the time to go to the neighbor for dinner, to chat at the veranda and chat a little bit, and those days are kind of fading away, not for the better, but for the worse. Because with all of that divide, we fail to protect each other similarly. But with technology, we can still do that. We can still say to Mr. Brown, I see a car a gate last night and you weren't home, and this car passed yesterday, the car passed the day before. So the point I'm making, we have to go back to the days when we protect each other, be our brothers' keepers. That's how this problem will be solved in Jamaica. I don't know if I've answered the question, but yes.
Thank you, Omar. And the final question before we bring this program to a close is for Damian. Damian, the question is, can nude pics online or revenge porn be removed?
Okay, so the thing about the internet is that basically what it is a whole bunch of computers that are distributed all across the world that are connected in some way. So when you put information out there, you really don't have a lot of control over where that information goes. You might upload something to one computer, somebody has access to it, they might download it to view it, and then they may choose to upload it to another computer somewhere else, or make it available on their computer to a bunch of other people, and so on and so on. So the real possibility is that once it gets out there, you will never be able to completely remove it. It will be sitting on some computer somewhere. And when you think that some computers, people back them up to tape or to CD-ROM or whatever, the data is out there sitting somewhere. So you realistically probably will never be able to completely eliminate it once it has gone out there. Which is why, there's a saying they used to say, prevention better than cure. It's better not to let things get out that you don't want to get out. Because once you let it get out, it's very difficult to contain it when it comes to the internet, right? Sometimes people think, okay, I can just delete, or I have a file I don't want, people, I'll just delete it. When it comes to computers, sometimes delete doesn't really mean delete. Delete means marked for deletion, and it still stays there. It's just invisible to the regular operations until it gets overwritten by new information. So even after you think you delete it, it's possible for somebody to recover it from that device. So we need to think carefully about what content we produce and distribute, because some things we may not be able to erase or get rid of once it is out there, right? And just as a parting shot, which encompasses many aspects of security and safety and so on, I just want to leave this general principle or thought. When we think about securing our valuables, and our valuables can be our children, it can be our possessions, it can be our money. When we're thinking about securing our valuables, we have to look at what are the threats, what is it that can happen, what are the threats, what are the bad things that can happen, who would be trying to do bad things to us or to our assets or to our valuables. We need to look at the vulnerabilities. What are the weaknesses? What conditions exist that would make it possible for somebody to do something bad or to exploit or to, compromise what it is that we hold dear to us, right? We need to look at how likely it is, what's the likelihood of something happening? Are there events that are occurring frequently which could lead to a compromise? And we also have to look at, essentially the value of what it is we're looking to protect. How far are we willing to go to protect what is valuable to us, right? If we're talking about our children as the most valuable asset that we could have and that we'll be held responsible for, those lives. So we really should not be holding back when it comes to protecting them. Keeping them safe now becomes a matter of either trying to reduce the vulnerabilities, reduce the weaknesses, build them up, make them stronger, make them more resilient. It's about reducing the opportunities for things to go bad, minimizing the likelihood that bad things can happen. And it's also about making wise investments in terms of how we go about doing that, right? Do the things that give the best value for money, value for time, value for effort, that are most effective. That's what we should be focusing our efforts from. Now, sometimes people think that technology is the solution and the answer to everything. It's not always the case, right? Sometimes the most efficient, effective, best way of accomplishing protection for our kids is the good old-fashioned low-tech way. We monitor them, we talk to them, we build them up, we teach them, we train them, and we get them to the point where they can come to us with anything, and to the point where they are strong enough and resilient enough and equipped enough and empowered enough to handle things that come at them, even when we are not around or not in the picture. So that is what I would want to leave us with in terms of a general approach to how we go about keeping our kids safe and secure. It's not all about technology. It's not all about, bells and whistles and fancy things. It really boils down to good old-fashioned parenting and what is it that is important to you? What's most important to you? What are you going to be willing to do to keep your kids safe? That's that.
Okay, thank you very much, Damian. That was very detailed and very informative. So if anyone is just joining us, we just had a riveting panel discussion about children's safety on the road, at home, and online. We definitely need to have a part 2 to this discussion. But the time, we have to stick to the time limit. And we have Mrs. Latoya Minot Hall from the Office of the Children's Advocate. She came on and she represented the OCA very well, but she had to leave. We have with us still Damian Donaldson, an information technology expert, and he shared a lot of information. We must be very grateful to Damian's knowledge because of the fact that we're in the information technology age, we have to be aware of all these things that are happening that are centered around information technology and how we can protect our children while they use the technology. Also, our third panelist, we have Omar Farquharson, a security expert, right? And he is an investigator of crimes. He shared a lot of information about safety on the road, and safety at home, and just safety in general. So this program has been an enlightening one. We are very thankful to the AY department of the Andrews Memorial S.D.A. Church for having us on this platform to share with all of you about the importance of children's safety at home, on the road, and online. And remember, the Bible says we need to train up a child in the way that he will go so that when he's old, he will not depart from it. And I have something short to share with you before we go. Children are a gift from God. They are truly a blessing and a source of joy to their parents. Children should be allowed to be happy. They should be allowed to be children. They should be allowed to be safe and feel safe. So we as parents, we are the first teachers and we are security officers for our children. We have to protect them. They are our responsibility. Their safety is our responsibility. Thank you very much for joining. And now we'll have the closing prayer by Mr. Farquharson. Omar, can you please pray for us to close this program? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Let us bow our heads. I will give thanks for this moment. Our Father, who art in heaven, as we gather in this fashion to close this important discussion, I want to give you thanks that you could allow this opportunity to be gathered in this fashion to share knowledge and to edify our brothers and sisters in this fashion. Times have changed and things have changed, and you have to keep us up with knowledge so we can be prepared and to protect our young ones. We give you thanks for this avenue and for this opportunity. We give you thanks for knowledge and wisdom that you have blessed us. We pray that you might be with us and guide us. We give you thanks also for this blessed Sabbath day that you have blessed us and guide us. We pray that you might continue to shelter and bless and keep us. Prosper us in all our ways. Once more, we give you thanks for the wisdom and the knowledge you have blessed us with. We pray that you may help us to use it in the right way. We beg these mercies, protection, and the blessings of you, O Father. In your Son's name I pray. Amen. Amen.
All right. Thank you very much. That's it.